Hello, everybody. And I would really ask everybody just to say hello again so that I know that you're here, to make some kind of interaction, whoever it is. So I can see that at least there are some people here like Paulina, Joyce, Rebecca, Guilherme, so that you can say at least a short hello, and it would be great. Okay, good. Oh, it's fun. I can see only my own name. Good. Great. So I will talk today about what is possible in technology, because we are a solution provider. We are not a system provider, a service provider. We are a so-called solution provider. So what does NOAA do? We provide archive transfer technology for audiovisual archives worldwide. Around 4 million hours of audiovisual legacy material has been transferred with NOAA tools in the last 20 years. You can find so prominent service providers as Memnon as well inside, or Atos, and many final clients who have used our tools to reach this goal. In parallel, we have also developed a so-called archive asset management tool. Today, I will talk mainly about archive transfer technology and try to bring a little bit light behind the dark. Because the big question is always in-house or outsource. We just heard Memnon and Sony, a Sony company, to give you a so-called business process outsourcing, a complete outsourcing of your material to be digitized. So let's look a little bit of how you can organize this. If you have problematic carriers, well, then it looks different. But if no, do you have trained staff available? Are there replayers available? If you don't have this, can you train them? Can you hire them? Can you rent the replayers? Is acquisition possible of high quality digitization equipment? Just in case that you have only problematic carriers, then you might consider indeed a complete outsourcing approach. As we are a technology provider, we provide you with technology what you can realize in-house, on-site, in situ. Let's talk about problematic carriers versus unproblematic carriers. We have made a survey and several cost comparisons, taking archive questionnaires together from around 20 broadcasters and archives worldwide. And this is the typical situation with these service providers, with these archives. You have around a certain percentage which is problematic tapes and a certain percentage which is so-called unproblematic tapes. If you look about the situation with the problematic tapes, then around 10 to 20% is based upon problematic tapes, whereas 80 to 90% can be considered unproblematic tapes. So to say, if you have a 200,000 hours archive, 160 to 180,000 hours can be considered unproblematic, and 22 something thousand hours can be considered problematic. Now, let's look at those specific formats. We have just made a differentiation between these two. Films, 2-inch, 1-inch A, 1-inch B, is a problematic format. Unproblematic formats are 1-inch C, U-matic is something in between, and completely unproblematic is Betacam, DVCam, and DVC Pro. Now, let's look in the details, for example, of film. Film is around 5 to 10% of the archives. It needs quite some manual preparation, resplicing, manual cleaning, wet cleaning. You need to select the best copy. Often there are several copies of the same part of the program in negative, positive, interpositive, etc. But the advantage is still you have new scanners available on the market. So this is a quite unproblematic task regarding sourcing of machines. However, it's a long process with quite low productivity and a quite high cost. The advantage of film, of course, is that polyester film, even nitrate film, is a quite robust film support and has a lifetime of 100 years and more, and does not have the problem of obsolescence. It will always be possible to have a light, a camera, 2 rolls, to digitize and see the content of the film. When we look at 2-inch, then we have this specific situation which I asked with my very nasty question before in the presentation of Memnon, that in Brazil specifically you have this PAL M version. This is a PAL color coding with NTSC feed frequency. It's a very dedicated market, Brazil. Fortunately, it's only 1 to 3% of the archives. You will require kind of tape baking, tape cleaning, sometimes 2-3 passes of tape cleaning. You see how much debris goes off such a tape. And the head time of such a machine is around 400 to 500 hours. So this is a very complicated process, which needs also some final editing, a manual process with low productivity and very high cost. You do sometimes this digitization several times. So we consider this problematic format to be better outsourced to a service provider in case they have the machines. 1-inch, there are different types of 1-inch machine. 1-inch A is quite rare. You can forget about it also for Brazil. 1-inch B is considered a problematic format because you need a very skilled engineer to make up this machine. But 1-inch C can be considered an unproblematic format, so can be done in-house. It's quite a robust tape. It will survive quite a long time from the magnetic side. So this is actually also a manual process with good productivity, mid-range cost. For 1-inch C, we consider that as an unproblematic format. Why do I always talk about problematic and unproblematic formats? Some of them can be done in-house, some of them can only be done outside. Same for U-matic. U-matic has the problem of moisture on the tape surface, has the problem of oxide loss, has the problem of mold, and this needs several cleaning passes, several baking passes, sometimes over a few hours and even more, so that you can play them back on machines. Difficult sourcing the right U-matic machines, and even more difficult sourcing the right TBCs for that one. In this case, I would also suggest if somebody has the machines, then it should be somebody who is skilled and outsource this process. Now let's come to the unproblematic carriers for digitization. 80 to 90%, let's say again, from your 200,000 hours, around 160,000 to 180,000 hours of your archive is an unproblematic carrier. The magnetic cassettes were used from 1982 until 2015. You have 4 generations which you can load actually on multi-format machines. MSW, for example, is a very suitable machine which has a very good picture control and picture correction, which can help you setting up this in a good way. And here comes where NOAA comes in. We provide the technology routing all these business processes for this ATT called, for this archive transfer technology in a NOAA context. So when you attack your archive process, then we propose a hybrid solution. Problematic carriers will go outsource, and unproblematic carriers will stay in-house and can be done with your own people, which we train in case that this is required, where we can provide even replays for that for rental so that you can do this in-house. So the key to success in such a systematic in-house digitization, how to come from here to here in the most economic way, is actually the process. When you think about the process, people sometimes only think about digitization, encoding, export to storage. But then you realize there's more. There is transfer quality checks, technical annotation, maybe wrapper analysis, file-based analysis, even final QC. And then you realize that you have some carrier handling which goes around with that one, cleaning, how you return this to the archive. And then, of course, you need to just check this in content-wise into the MUM system regarding metadata. So a workflow is a basis, not a process. And let's look about 5 different aspects of an industrial digitization process. And this is not a product pitch, it's just a process pitch, what I'm doing right now here. So when we talk about quality control on all levels, then, for example, during transfer of audio material. With audio, we, for example, collect the splicing information of a tape into a specific marker list. We collect azimuth control into a specific overview marker list. Several large service providers, some of them, one sitting in Belgium, has 80 lines of NOAA being set up as such, where they collect, for example, C2 errors from DAT. When we talk about video, we collect, for example, metadata directly from the tape head. So doing such large transitions, don't forget 4 million hours in these years, needs very specific quality control. We extract the electrical metadata directly from the heads and are able to tell you whether the interaction between tape and head has been done correctly. Nobody wants to do a digitization a second time. We at NOAA, we concentrate on transfer errors so that nothing has to be digitized a second time. So let's see whether this goes further. Quality control for recorded files, for example. Interstitial errors, how to face silent corruption. In audio, this happens sometimes after transfers, or this, a glitch, or even a mute. We have seen some archives for political speeches where words were missing. Now, how do you face this? There was an overview actually in North America where about from 86 responding archives, 56% reported interstitial errors here. It was published in the FIAT survey. We have addressed this with specific technologies where we collect CRC checksums at the DSP and send this to the workstation that we know that any bit stream is really arriving from the AD converter towards the final workstation. It's called no bit proof, and it's really securing that these transition from analog to digital creates the perfect new facsimile and not just an interpretation. And then for the entire process itself, for example, this is a facility which we have set up together with Atos. Here we have set up 4 levels of quality control where we look at the transfer quality control, at the wrapper quality control. For example, does the IMX be in its specific shim specifications? Then we look at the file-based baseband QC, and of course, the process QC. We need to know with several hundred files per day whether these files have passed through to the end destination of it. This is a quite large project, 600,000 IMX cassettes. They have now done more than 300,000 cassettes in the last years, and they trust the process so well that they even destroy physically the archive afterwards. Now just get this, they destroy physically the archives. That's something which won't happen in Latin America. At least our installation, for example, in Fonoteca, Mexico, they would never destroy, of course, their physical archive. They just keep it in the repository. But broadcasters in Austria, they need a place, so why would they keep that? You have the situation that you need to trace your files and your carriers through that logistics chain. So there is different steps in the workflow, and you need to know actually where, when, and how this process is just happening right now. So here, this is really needed to make this a reliable process. So the usage of unique identifiers, barcodes, we call it also a carrier positioning system. Then you need to optimize the manual and electro interventions going from analog domain to the digital domain. So National Broadcaster in Finland has set up this with in-house digitalizations as well as the phonogram archive here. How can you optimize the process to how much time do you spend per carrier? And this is very important. For example, going from analog to digital domain, we heard before about 1-inch material. This is a 1-inch C material. This will be digitized in 10-bit. And color corrections and black and white collections are done in the digital domain on a lossless file so that you can render out then the final archive facsimile in case this needs to be put into EBU range. So, separation of labor and decisions. This is quite an interesting part because everybody knows how a kitchen works in a large restaurant. There is a chef, there is a sous chef, there is a sauce chef, there is, for each specific part, there is specialties which need to be applied. This can be set up in an industrial digitalization chain as well. You just need to set up this, again, or F in Atos, with different skills and role sets, and then this can be done correctly. For example, a logistics operator, a carrier preparation operator, etc., etc. So all these is helping you to bring down the cost per carrier towards a minimum when you do this in-house. I have prepared a small video here which shows actually the process, how this is done actually in the NOAA environment. You collect your digitization badge, you put that into a shelf, into a box, then you scan this box and you register these carriers towards that specific box so that you always know where in the process is what. This is part of our carrier positioning system. Then you scan, of course, from each material everything with a simple photo. This goes very quick and leads you to a situation where you can also handle additional tasks like repair measures or tape baking. After this has been done, you go over to the ingest. This is a very simple procedure where everything is barcoded. You just put the tape under the barcode and you enter it in the machine. The rest is done more or less by the complete system automatically. Machines are remotely stored, and this is a process every single student can organize. It's not needing a high-skilled engineer. We capture here those electrical metadata like video and RF data so that we know that the transfer has been done okay. At the end of the task, of course, the cassette is rewinded, automatically ejected. We bring down the handling time with the cassettes to less than half a minute actually by this. Of course, there's a quality control, and with a good tape, you will just make a segmentation, and in-out segmentation, we follow the principle to digitize the whole file so that we know that if there is something else on the whole file, we would just capture this as well. By this way, I have found, for example, at ORF, some very old content which was supposed to be lost. In a bad tape here, for example, you can see that several errors have been captured during the digitization interactive status reports. So this visual control will lead to a second capture, so that the second capture will require an additional cleaning and will go for an additional capturing. This goes on and on with audio control. This goes on and on with different things. So this will help you actually to set up a process which is industrialized and can cope with large amount of quantities of an archive. So, let's talk about cost efficiency. So, here again, will you go outsourcing? Will you do insourcing? When advantages are, when using your own stuff, is you may use existing personnel. The salaries remain with the institution or even with the country. We come as NOAA with the technology on site and let you run the show. So we bring the workbench as well as the equipment, and you run the show on site. And all things like logistics, carrier preparation, ingest are taught by us with specific workflows. So if you look at a typical outsourcing procedure, then 25% of it is only carrier preparation and digitization. Things like metadata adaptation is quite difficult to outsource. Imagine a European service provider trying to annotate a 2-inch quadruplex from Pakistan. They will not be able to annotate this correctly, but it will be possible that metadata adaptation will be done on site. So this is one part of the story only. When we look at the so logistics, as you can see, QC, technical metadata, annotation, adaptation is that one which really remains with you. Only carrier preparation and ingest would go outsourced. From a financing point of view, you have also the situation of a business process outsourcing where you have constant cost over the years. So if you do, for example, 50,000 Betacam cassettes, then every year 12,500 cassettes will be digitized, and you will pay a fixed price for it over the years, which will lead, if you spend public money, to a much higher budget than, for example, if you go for a CapEx version, a capital investments, meaning that you have actually in the first year some cost of the investment for the system and some cost of maintenance contract. On top of that, you may have actually manpower, which you have to apply yourself. Very often in large institutions, these people exist. So in our case, we use students. In the Finnish broadcaster, for example, they have had syndicate contracts with guardians, which they couldn't fire. So they reused these people because they were anyway here. We call them also the anyway here people, which they can use. So this brings you to a much different cost situation compared to, for example, accumulated outsourced cost. This situation is also quite interesting because talking about pricings, and a cassette will cost in Europe at the moment between 15 and 30 euro, depending on the quality what you would like to achieve. And if you do it with some of our clients, manage to bring that down to below 8 euro when you do the in-house approach based upon a CapEx version. So this is something when you spend public money, which is important to know. Okay, so the key to success in a systematic in-house digitalization is quality control on all levels. The track records of NOAA worldwide have proven to do so. The traceability of carriers and files, optimizing manual and intellectual interventions, separation of labor and decisions, and of course, cost efficiency. So this together will bring you to a very interesting final solution. I just conclude with some nice pictures actually from our references, like the one at the Finnish broadcaster in Wiley, or the one at the broadcaster in ORF at Atos, with this famous 600,000 cassettes. So here you can see Christoph Bauer, a well-respected member of the FIAT. On the left side, you see those cassettes. On the right side, the empty shelves. They won't be filled anymore. They will be freed up. Then we have a very nice installation actually in Charger Broadcasting Authority, where a mass migration on different formats has been achieved to FFV1. That's an open source archive format, which is quite prominently used in the archive community. And we have promoted this format because it helps you to create a format which we can read without the help of the writing software. It's an open source tool actually. Slovenia, the same. They have realized 250,000 hours of audio archive in 6 years, and around 102,000 hours will be done about in 6 years. They have massive metadata needs, and they have done this completely in-house. So we help you in setting up this in-house. We can help you and combine intelligent technology with on-site existing resources, on-site existing players. We can help you with sourcing players. We have a huge rental park, meanwhile, where we can help you with the rental equipment of that one, so that we do not have this logistics overhead of bringing 200,000 carriers to Austria, for example. We can come with the technology to you, and this is much more lean and much more cost efficient. This will only work, however, for unproblematic formats. Okay, that's it. I'm at the end of my presentation. Obrigado. Thank you very much. And I hope that I get some questions. No, there's one question here. Yeah. Good question. Thank you.
Okay.
Yes. Our solution is made up as such that we digitize first in a 10-bit FFVHAF own format, because on this 10-bit FFVHAF own format, we can work a little bit more efficiently also with all the transcodings. And then it's not really transmux, it's actually FFVHAF, and then we go to FFV1 and transcode that again. So FFVHAF is about a 10-bit, 160 mbit heavy codec, mathematically lossless, a Huffman-coded version. And from that on, we can create all the derivatives. Sometimes some of the clients have the need for FFV1. Some of them want to have an FFV1 plus an IMX. Some of them want to have an FFV1 plus a DVC Pro 50. The good thing is, as our own interim format is in 10-bit, we can apply all kind of video level corrections in a mathematically lossless way. I'm happy to get any kind of question. You see my email there. Any kind of questions, will be ready to answer them. We have a very nice installation in Mexico. It's an audio installation, an audio archive, Fonoteca Nacional. And we are happy to answer also from their experience there any further questions. Thank you very much.